a lot can change in a week. And we've seen in other states how it can only take one case to see a widespread outbreak. In that week, we've had 9 cases here in Queensland, 2 travellers from Victoria, 3 cases of local transmission, 2 Queenslanders who travelled to Sydney, and 1 returning Queenslander via Sydney, as well as that 1 case today, and we don't yet know the source of their infection. Those cases have placed an enormous burden on our health system. We've done 85,000 tests in that week, 84,795 tests. We've contact traced thousands of Queenslanders. Many are now in quarantine. We've seen people go to great lengths to avoid our border lockdown. People be dishonest, people try to deceive our police, people lying on their border passes, and not just at the border, but right around the state, in Cairns, Townsville, Gympie, Nanango. In fact, police have now served more than a dozen notices to appear in court. Over that week also, Victoria has declared a state of emergency. Masks are now mandatory. There's a curfew in the city. New South Wales is on high alert, and we've seen cases there creeping north of the city. It is clear now that Australia is experiencing a second wave of COVID-19, and we cannot afford to have that second wave here in Queensland. There is also intelligence to suggest that some people are flying via the ACT in order to avoid our hotspots lockdown. Here in Queensland, our economy has just started getting back on its feet. Our plan to unite and recover and get people back into jobs is just starting to work. We've eased restrictions. Businesses are open again. People are back at work. We cannot afford to risk that progress. We cannot afford to risk the opportunity to continue to unite and recover. Throughout this entire pandemic, our Premier has stood strong. She has listened to the health advice, she has listened to Queenslanders, and that is precisely what we are doing today. These steps, well, there'll be some critics. It might be the LNP, it might be Clive Palmer. But we are doing the right thing to keep Queenslanders safe. Border restrictions have proven to be one of the most effective tools at stopping COVID-19 from coming into our state. And that's why today we are closing the border to New South Wales. All of New South Wales and the ACT will be declared a hotspot. This is a hard closure. The road border between Queensland and New South Wales will be closed to all but a very limited number of exceptions, freight, and those who live in border communities. This will come into effect at 1 a.m. Saturday. So if you're a Queenslander in New South Wales, please come home. If you're a Queenslander who has any travel plans to travel to New South Wales, please change those plans now. Anyone else travelling to Queensland and allowed to continue to travel to Queensland will have to travel by air or via the Northern Territory border. They will not be able to travel into Queensland via the Queensland-New South Wales border, and police will be enforcing that. We will also be strengthening the application process for border passes to ensure that people have to provide photographic identification. This is all about keeping Queenslanders safe and catching anyone who tries to lie to get into our state. With the nation's second biggest economy closed, with our biggest state economy on the brink, we need to keep the Queensland economy going for Queenslanders, but also in the national interest. And that's why I would urge the Prime Minister to support these steps, and I would also urge Clive Palmer to drop his dangerous and reckless case against state border closures. They are incredibly important. These steps, these measures will be reviewed at the end of the month. They will cause some inconvenience. But that inconvenience is nothing compared to what people are experiencing right now in Victoria, nothing compared to the inconvenience of having to go back to stage 1 restrictions. So I'd urge all Queenslanders to stay safe, to get tested if they are sick, to wash their hands, to keep their distance. Together we will get through this.